Blacks say America needs us, and here is what the white people have to say about it. Hey guys, welcome back to my Christian Tech on this, where we react to some strange and not so strange videos. On this particular video, I'm not going to say much. We're going to do more of the watching, and we have a conversation in the comment section. This is a very, very sensitive topic to me, and it's close to home. So I just want to have a conversation. I just want to have a conversation more in the comment section. And yeah, so let's see what this is all about.
Imagine waking up tomorrow and every black and brown person in America is just gone. No warning, no explanation, just poof, gone. The workforce, the culture, the communities, the contributions, just all erased overnight. What would happen to America? Would it thrive, like some racists claim? Or would it collapse under its own weight? Let's talk about it. Black and brown workers make up nearly half of America's essential workforce. Nurses, teachers, farm workers, truck drivers, construction workers, delivery drivers, just gone. The $3 trillion that black and brown consumers contribute to the economy vanished. Small businesses, over 30% of them are minority owned. That means empty storefronts, lost jobs, and neighborhoods turned into ghost towns. We know for a fact that the U.S. relies on immigrant labor and historically oppressed communities to do the work that it doesn't want to acknowledge. Without black and brown people, who's going to keep things running? Who's going to make America cool? Let's be real. American culture is black and brown culture. Hip-hop, gone. Latin music, gone. Fashion, slang, food, art, all gone. The NBA, the NFL, boxing, decimated. No more Serena Williams, no more Patrick Mahomes. No more Jalen Hurts. No more LeBron, no more Messi. No more Usain Bolt. You're watching a golf tournament in silence now. Black culture alone generates billions for corporations, but those same corporations fight against black empowerment. Imagine them trying to profit off America, but they have nothing but bland corporate branding and country music. But we created that too. 1 in 5 doctors, 1 in 4 nurses, 1 in 3 home health aides are black or brown. Who's going to take care of America's aging population? The agricultural industry. Most farm workers are Latino. That means no fresh fruits and vegetables. Fast food, meatpacking, warehouses, sanitation, heavily dependent on black and brown labor. But if they're gone, those industries, they shut down overnight. The same people that America underpays and disrespects are the ones keeping it alive. 40% of the U.S. military is made up of minorities. Without them, America's global power weakens instantly. Law enforcement? Black and Latino officers make up 30% of the police force. Who's going to patrol the communities? America would no longer be a superpower. Because trust me, the rest of the world is watching. America needs the very same people that it mistreats. The U.S. relies on immigrant workers and young black and brown folks to fund programs like Social Security and Medicare. Without them, there aren't enough taxpayers left to support the system. Retirement funds? Drained. White America will realize too late that the same people they spent decades trying to suppress are actually the backbones of this country. America's entire financial system depends on people of color, but it refuses to invest in them. Who's left to blame after we're gone? Without black and brown people, who's going to be the new problem? Can't blame crime on inner cities. Can't complain about taking our jobs. Can't scapegoat immigrants anymore. So who's the new target? Because history shows that when oppressed people disappear, the powerful just find a new enemy. The reality is black and brown people built this country, fund this country, and maintain this country. America doesn't function without its most exploited and underappreciated people. The real question isn't what happens if we leave. The real question is, why is America so dependent on people that it refuses to respect? The fact is, America doesn't deserve black and brown people. But without us, it doesn't exist.
Comment down below, what do you guys think about this? If all black and brown people are taken out of America, will America thrive? Yeah, comment down below, what do you guys think? I want to hear from you guys.
I'm wondering, when are white people going to start listening to the black community? When are we going to admit that they were right about Trump? They were right during the civil rights era. They were right about abolition. And now we know, now we can see they've been right about Trump all along. They got our attention during the George Floyd protests, but we didn't listen We were just like fair weather fans. But if we could ever get behind this community, if we could ever draw from their wisdom and their knowledge of what America really is at the cellular level, because they've seen this all along, and there is so much we could learn if we would just humble ourselves and move out of the spotlight just for a moment and let them speak.
And I just want to see where this is going. Yeah.
Jim Crow, white men. Slavery, white men. Segregation, white men. Concentration camps for Asian Americans in the late 30s and early 40s. 1,800 people died. How many black people were hung from trees? 8,000. Let me guess. Oh yeah, once again, white men. The gun violence? 98% are men. 84% are white men, U.S. citizens. I see a trend. How about the Middle Passage where 1.2 African Americans died? Oh yeah, once again, white men. Why was the Second Amendment written? Let me think. So black people couldn't have their freedoms. So the white men could once again control them. Who's in the White House? An adjudicated rapist, convicted felon white man. Wow, I see a trend. But somehow Americans are just begging to blame a trans person, a non-white person. See, what happened to George Floyd is symbolic of what's happening in this country. The white man putting his knee on the neck of a non-white person and sitting there in broad daylight with the balls to say, who's going to stop me? And that's what we're seeing right now. So that's the question that we need to ask ourselves as a fucking country. Who's going to stop them? Because I'm just one person here. Now, I don't know about you, but I got friends and family that are sitting behind the white privilege, and I want nothing to do with them. Not because of who they are, because their lack of action. Martin Luther King said, history is going to remember not the people that did bad things, but the good people that stood by and did nothing.
Most men...
Things are getting crazier. Let's continue.
Black people would die without white people. And quite frankly, they're our only allies that we have in this world. Africans sure as hell don't like us. And quite frankly, they're the ones that sold us into slavery. And if you really think about it, we don't produce anything, we don't own anything, and we damn sure do not know how to live off the land. And with all the dysfunction that is coming out of our communities, I don't think people will want to help us. We as a community need to change our worldview, and we have to be accountable for the things that is happening within our community and actually come together and do something about it. This toxic relationship that we have with white people and this built up anger that we have against them, it needs to come to an end. I'm telling you guys, the people at the top is loving this. As we stay distracted, they destroy our country. True Americans do not care about race. And if you are a person that cares about race, then you are a part of the problem. We live in the greatest country in the world, and there's people out there that would die to be in our positions. And there's people out there that do die to try to get here. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, united we stand and divided we fall.
I recently put out a video and I was talking about why are people like disunited? Why are people? Why are we still on the black and white issue? And people are like, man, people will never be united. She's talking about unity. What do you guys think? I want to hear from you guys. And also, she talked about how Africa hates black people, black American people. I don't know how true that is, but I just want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? I talked about unity. People are like, bro, you don't know what you're talking about. Do some research. Go. Do you know history? People are telling me so many things. So I just want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? Let's have a conversation in the comment section. I told you this topic is it's close to home in a way. So I just want to watch and hear from you guys. Yeah.
If slavery never happened, then you would be in a grass hut. Yeah. Right? Well, we need reparations. Your reparations are that you get to live in America. You're welcome. You're welcome.
You get to have the Christian religion.
That's
live
right.
better than your ancestors.
The greatest moment in history for any brown or black country is the moment that the white man's ships arrive on your shore.
Let me tell you about what black people suffered through after those white men's ships arrived on their shores. They got hundreds of years of enslavement, oppression, abuse, torture, murder, rape. Not only did black former slaves get nothing after emancipation, President Andrew Johnson, a white Southerner, he made certain that white enslavers were made whole. Reparations, but not for former slaves, reparations for rich white slave owners. After the Civil War, blacks were kept poor, systematically poor, and with almost zero ability to grow wealth. Thousands of black prisoners were leased by Southern states to former white enslavers in what were called convict leases, where blacks, again, worked for free while white men made themselves rich again from their labor and upon their broken backs. There were also sharecropping, which grossly exploited black work ethic while allowing the former enslavers to maintain their power and to continue to grow their wealth, their white wealth. Again, ultimately passing that on to future generations of their white descendants. Of course, during this time, there were also Jim Crow laws in place all over the South, which made it illegal for black Americans to occupy the same spaces as whites. Hospitals and bathrooms, private buildings, elevators, phone booths, restaurants, water fountains, everything that was white, which was everything, was off limits for black Americans. Black Americans. Jim Crow laws also intended to force black people into indentured servitude, to limit their voice in the political system by stripping away their constitutional rights to vote, and to control where they live. It was the American legal system explicitly designed for oppressing them. You know this though, Joel, right? So tell me, Joel Webbin, your goofy little sidekick maybe, or anybody else for that matter, black people should be thankful? Thankful? America wasn't a different nation back then. In so many ways, we are the same country, making the same mistakes, abusing the same peoples, reinforcing those same old traumas.
Let's comment down below. Let's have a conversation. Yeah, and to those, anyway, let me on to the next one.
To my white brothers and sisters, I'm not politically correct. I tell it like it is. When I hear someone say go back to your country, it's always from a white person directed at a black or brown person. But that makes no sense because our ancestors weren't from here, and we stole this land, and we're still colonizing it. And when I hear black and indigenous and people of color talk about reparations, I hear a white person in the background yelling reverse racism. But that makes no sense because white people have never been and are not being oppressed based on their race. So white people, I have a question. Why are you so afraid of losing your position in society? Why are you so afraid of losing the comfort that white supremacy has given you? Why are you so afraid of actual equality? Learn up.
I'll be there to respond to each and every comment. Let's have a discussion.
Hey, good morning, Nikki Haley. Remember when you said that America is not and has never been a racist nation? Well, if that's the case, why don't we have universal health care? The answer is simple. Racism. See, in the 1880s, white America had a problem that they just couldn't solve, which they called the Negro problem. They said that in 1865, we whites gave the blacks their freedom. And we also passed slave codes, black codes, and Jim Crow laws to prevent their upward mobility in this country. And now here we are in the 1880s, and we don't understand why these Negroes haven't done anything with themselves. We gave them their freedom. What more do they want? And white people at the time said, well, you know, they're genetically inferior to us. So if we simply deny them health care, they'll die off in a generation or two. And that will solve white America's Negro problem. Don't believe me? Watch this.
It really began in the 1880s, 1890s when medicine became a thing. And there was this guy named Frederick Ludwig Hoffman who came over here from Germany. And he was a young man. He was 17, in fact, when he came over, and was a numbers genius. And he hooked up with the Prudential Life Insurance Company, ended up being a vice president. And he was the guy who figured out that there was an association, a statistical association between working in a cotton mill and having lung problems, asbestos and mesothelioma, smoking and lung cancer. He published on that in the 1910s, in the 1890s and 1910s, and diet and cancer. In fact, his book on the association between a high processed food diet and cancer is still in print. And he's been dead since 1946, but his book is still around. So he's really smart in these things. And so he married this Southern belle from Georgia who was from a racist plantation family. And so he ran the numbers on black people and found that black people were dying, dropping like flies, more likely to be sick, more likely to die of pretty much everything. And concluded, which was the general consensus at the time among a lot of white people in the South, this is again in the 1890s, that black people were genetically inferior. And in 1896, he published a book called Race, Tendencies, and Traits of the American Negro, in which he lays out all the numbers, and then he concludes that if we simply avoided allowing black people to have any access to health care, that within 2 or 3 generations, the whole race would die out, and that would solve the race problem in America. Now, it sounds kind of crazy when I just lay it out like that right now, but this led to a whole bunch of things. By the 1920s, this was referred to as scientific racism. He was testifying about it before Congress. When Teddy Roosevelt, 1912, proposed a national health care system, people said no because black people will get it. When Franklin Roosevelt proposed a national health care system, it was the same thing. We don't want black people to get it. When Truman tried it in 1947, same thing. Don't want black people to get it. Right up until 1965, Senator Stennis, the Dixiecrats in the South, was quoting Hoffman, who was by then dead, but is still very famous in this field, as saying this, we have to figure out a way to keep black people from using Medicare. This is when they were passing Medicare. And the way that they came up with was to have a 20% a gap in Medicare, so that you had to pay 20% of your doctor's bill and your hospital bill, and that would discourage poor black people from showing up at the hospitals. I mean, it was the most shocking thing I discovered, Cenk, when I was doing the research on this book, is that nearly 100% of the reason why the United States is the only country in the world that doesn't define healthcare as a right and doesn't have any sort of national healthcare system to speak of is because of racism. And that's why you've got 12 states that still haven't expanded Medicaid, right? Free health insurance for low-income people, all former slave states.
One of those states is South Carolina, the state you currently govern. Matter of fact, you said as long as I'm the governor of South Carolina, we will not expand Medicaid on Obama's watch. We will not expand Medicaid ever. You also said that we fought the Affordable Care Act in South Carolina as much as we possibly could. We said no to the state exchanges. We said no to the Medicaid expansion. They just turned and set every state back with this bill that we knew wouldn't work. When it came to the Affordable Care Act, we just didn't say no, we said never. And we're going to keep on fighting until we get people like Senator Tim Scott and everybody else in Congress to defund the Affordable Care Act. You also said that you would end a disastrous health care program and replace it with reforms that lowered costs and actually let you keep your doctor. You vowed to never expand Medicaid coverage as long as you were the governor of South Carolina, which left millions of your constituents uninsured and forced them to pay crazy amounts of money out of pocket in order to receive the essential care they needed to survive. Why are you fighting so hard to ensure the people of South Carolina don't have access to adequate health care? Is it because you're afraid, like they were in the 1910s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, that black people would have access to affordable health care? Is that your fear? If so, Nikki Haley, that's racist.
This thing is beyond what we think. And I know so many people will disagree, but we need to pray. We need to really pray. This thing.
The reason America doesn't have a lot of things is because of racism. Because white people can't enjoy an ice cream cone without knocking one out of the hands of a black person. So now can't nobody have ice cream. If racism wasn't the foundation of the United States in every single institution that is in the United States, we would all be living in an entirely different reality. One where everybody has universal health care, one where we wouldn't have credit scores. Credit scores are a fairly recent invention. They were invented in 1989 by the Fair Isaac Corporation, otherwise known as FICO, and it was supposed to be to assess the credit risk for lenders. It was a standardized way to help lenders to see who they should and shouldn't lend to. Guess who they didn't lend to, guys? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a black people. Student loans is another one. As soon as more black people started going to college, that's when the cost of college skyrocketed. Speaking of credit risk, you would assume that lending $100,000 to a literal child would be a risky, thing to do, but that's where they make the exception. So it's easy for a kid to go into debt, but if you're a grown person attempting to get lent some money to start a business or get lent some money to buy a house, which also the price of those went up, then yeah, now you're a risk. We have created an entire, rental class of people where somebody can have paid thousands of dollars into rent every month, but they're still not able to buy a house because your renting history does not count towards your credit. So now nobody can enjoy nice things because white people have been going around knocking ice cream cones out of black people's hands for hundreds of years. But I didn't own slaves. The shittiness of this country is all based on making sure that black people do not have a good experience here in this country. Yes, it's also about exploitation, making sure that black people continue to be exploited along with all rest of the underclass populations. But the cruelty is also very much the point. So the bad vibes here is because of racism. It's because everybody is having a crappy time because white people can't stop themselves from squeezing black people, from policing black people, from making sure that, wait, are you supposed to be in first class? Wait. Do you live here? Is this, wait. You want to get paid a living wage? White people are given a diet of seeing themselves as victims, as seeing themselves as powerless, and seeing themselves as colorblind so that they can go like this and continue to perpetuate systems that hurt black people disproportionately and then bleed over into hurting everybody else. This is why when the Civil Rights Act happened and it helped black people, it helped everybody. It helped women, it helped disabled people. And then they unalived Martin Luther King because he was about to touch on class consciousness. He was taking a deep breath in and he was going to say, and another thing. And the American government took him out so fast. The moment white people, regular white people, the ones who think that they're powerless and the ones that think that they're colorblind, the moment that they get critical thinking skills and stop thinking some people deserve this human right and some people deserve that human right, we would be cooking with gas. But white people want to be seen as innocent and, well, that's not my problem, dude. Like, okay, well, it's not your problem, but it is your problem because you have credit scores, you have student loans, you can't afford health care, you can't afford a house either. It's our problem. Fix it.
I don't have to expound on some things. Again, let's have a conversation in the comment section.
True. Not one black person alive today was enslaved in America. That is true. Black people are wanting free stuff. Okay, I don't know. I want free stuff, so I guess white people want free stuff too. Reparations isn't about someone who had been enslaved and now is not enslaved. We had a chance to do that, and we blew it back in the 1880s and 90s. So 40 acres and a mule, for some it was more, for some it was less. 40 acres and a mule is what was promised to those working on plantations. That never happened. Then sharecropping. Then all the Jim Crow. All of those things prevented Black Americans from establishing any kind of generational wealth. Up and until the Civil Rights Act. Now, we can argue for a really long time that the Civil Rights Act didn't clear everything up. It didn't. But at least it was now illegal to discriminate. So I want you to think about if your family and ancestors had to start at 1964, where you and your family would be today. How would you have paid for college? Would your family have been able to help you with that? Where would you have lived? Reparations is about making up for what wasn't given then, which could have propelled that community into wealth today. We are finally seeing Black Americans with multi-generational wealth starting to emerge, and it's only going to keep on going, and that's great. But what reparations does is it makes up for the fact that you had all these enslaved Americans, and then, okay, you're free, with nothing. Starting from scratch in a system where they weren't even counted as a full human being, where they were limited in what jobs they could have. They didn't have access to Social Security. Now we have Civil Rights Act, 1964. Everyone has equal rights. So imagine if that's where your ancestors were starting. That's why reparations are important. And that's why I think we're remiss now for not taking a serious look at reparations and how we're going to do that. I know people get all hung up on, how do you prove that your ancestors were enslaved? Okay. How about we give low interest mortgages, interest-free mortgages, free college, and maybe that's the free stuff you're talking about. But that will only better our community. So what's the problem? I don't get what the problem is. So educate me.
You know what amazes me? When I hear white folks say, black people just need to get over it. Get over what exactly? The slavery that ripped families apart? The rapes, the beatings, the killings, the centuries of unpaid labor? The Jim Crow law that followed right after? The government that had the audacity to pay reparations, not to the slaves, but to the slave owners for losing their property, and then turned around and told the very people who built this country, you get nothing. See, here's the double insult. Not only did they abuse us, not only did they strip us of wealth, land, and opportunity, but then they had the nerve to blame the conditions they forced on us. They said, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Bootstraps we never had. And now in 2025, you got people bold enough to say our reparations is simply the fact that we get to live in America. Think about that. Our reparations are supposed to be the privilege of living in a country that we were forced to build against our will, a country that we still can't fully enjoy. That's not reparations. That's delusion. And here's the kicker. White folks love to point out our generational curses, the trauma passed down in our communities, but what they don't want to admit is their own generational curses, the slave owner mentality, the denial, the deflection, the refusal to accept accountability. That didn't just disappear. It's been passed down too. And now we got the mics. We're not just sitting back in silence while you guys create your own narratives about us. That worked when you were the only ones talking, but now we're talking too. But we're not just telling our side. We're telling the truth. So no, we're not getting over it. We're getting louder. We're getting sharper. We're getting bolder. And we're calling out every lie, every denial, every double standard. The days of you guys telling our stories, that's over with.
In your video, you said, we don't need them, they need us. Who's they?
Yes.
Who's they?
The white people ultimately don't need other races in order to succeed, in order to be ourselves. Absolutely not.
So how do you think America became the greatest economic nation without...
Not through black people.
Oh, it wasn't? It wasn't because of free labor?
Are you talking about slavery?
No, I'm talking about slavery and also what happened after slavery, which Douglas Blackmun talked about, slavery by another name. So I'm trying to understand, when you say didn't need it, how do you think America became the greatest economy that it did? How do you think that happened?
Through the genius of Europeans.
How was the genius of Europeans when the fact of the matter is it was actually King Cotton that supplied the economic means for America to do so? And that was a result of free labor from black people.
Look, the whole point here is that who creates these systems? Who creates these business models and businesses?
Slavery was a business model?
Well, yes, it was a business model, yeah.
And was that one that you like or dislike?
I dislike.
You dislike
yeah, I absolutely reject it.
Okay,
yeah.
so but you deny the reality, though,
no,
that's what allowed America to become the economic power, because America supplied 91% of the world's cotton. And so as a result of that, that's how America was able to fund the Industrial Revolution. It was because of free labor from black people.
The Industrial Revolution originated in Britain, and it originated in the countryside of Britain, where there were absolutely no slaves.
I said the money generated from that. But I asked you again, okay? You said we don't need anybody else.
No.
But the reality is, America history proves you wrong. The fact of the matter is, there is no great America. You can't sit here and talk about that greatness without other people making that happen.
We could have figured out another way to pick cotton.
Who?
I mean, white people could have figured out another way to
Y'all tried that, didn't work. Yeah, I mean, we
do it now. We've done it previously.
I don't know what books you read, but no, that's actually not what happened. But you said y'all would have figured it out, but you didn't.
Okay, I want to take a moment to say thank you to Donald Trump, not out of praise, but out of truth. Because while you rip through every part of this government, tearing down justice, equality, and fairness under the fake excuse of fighting DEI fraud, what you're really doing is confirming what black folks have been saying for generations. America was built on racism, fueled by fear and sustained by white supremacy. You've exposed it all. The masks are off. The polite racism, the fake allyship, the colorblind lies, it's all gone. Now we see it raw and unfiltered. You're not just targeting policy, you're targeting people. Black people, brown people, marginalized communities. And the wild part, we make up the smallest portion of this country, yet somehow we are the biggest threat to the lie that white supremacy built. That should tell you everything. You're afraid not of violence, not of replacement, but of the power we hold even when we have nothing. You see the way our culture, our brilliance, our resilience, our excellence continues to shape this country, even when it tries to erase us. Donald Trump is just the loudest version of a system that's always been in place. He is the living, breathing proof that this country was never designed with us in mind. And yet, we continue to define it. So thank you, Donald, for exposing what so many tried to deny, for showing the world that the fear of black greatness is real, for proving that racism isn't in our imagination, it's in the fabric of this nation. And to my people, we don't have to fight to prove our worth. He's doing that for us. All we have to do is stand firm, stay awake, and know that the truth is finally louder than the lie. We are not broken. We are not the problem. We are the evidence of the power that this country can contain. Let that truth ring louder than its hate.
Oh, I do think that white people are absolutely jealous of black people, specifically with the community, and also with like fashion and music and everything else that is appropriated. But by design of what whiteness is, it inherently lacks community. And I think we're absolutely jealous of that. And I've heard biracial people say that they do see that difference in their own families, because in addition to European cultures being more individualistic than cultures from Africa, South America, and indigenous North American cultures, the invention of whiteness in America erased a lot of ties to actual culture. So when I say like white people, black community, I'm not talking about like Polish people or German people or Irish people. As I explain in my book, I just wrote the intro and I'm working on the conclusion today. Y'all keep me in your prayers. In the course of human history, white is a relatively new term. As we discussed in the introduction to this book, white is a North American term emerging from the 1600s as a term to justify the enslavement of Africans and squelch revolts from poor Europeans and indentured servants. Before this term, Europeans would identify with their nationalities. The Irish, Italians, Germans, French are all very different cultures. Thus, there is not the same communal tie to whiteness as there is for people from other communities. Further, since white was created to be a divider, a separator, it is not a happy identity. It is not something people want to admit they relate to. It doesn't have a rich, healthy history. Speaking as a white American who has conducted national level research on white Americans, we tend to say things like we have German, Irish, Italian, etc. ancestry, even if we have never been to those places. This is because all white Americans have ties to immigration, and because these identities are actual cultures, they do not have roots only in oppression. Now, we know who started colonization, right? So this is the book I'm trying to finish by Monday and send to the editor. There's a free chapter in my bio if you're interested on one of the unwritten rules of work. The book is predominantly about class, but I talk about 3 other identities that you can't talk about class without talking about these other identities, and race is absolutely one of them.
Here is My Christian Tech. I feel like all this is bringing disunity. It's causing wrangles, and we need to pray about it. As I said, we need to keep in prayer about it, because it's bigger than what we think. It's bigger than what I think. That's why I'm saying we need God to intervene, because God is all-knowing. He can handle everything. So yeah, that's what I think. I need to hear from you guys. Comment down below, what do you think about this whole thing, and let's have a conversation in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and yeah, let's build a community. Peace and love. See you on the next one.